into the bucket system. I think what I'm going to do is just go really fast through this. You can follow along with me using the cheat sheet. Again, check the description of this video. I have a link to that cheat sheet. Go click on the link. It'll send you to this page. Go to File, Make a Copy, and that way you can go down to the Bucket System tab and put the filter that I'm going to be putting on this as well. So it is available to you. Let's go ahead and talk about each bucket. Now I clear, so I go into this little stat filter. First of all, I go up to the filter up here, go down the bucket system, click that. It'll bring up this filter for you. I need to update mine. It doesn't go all the way over. There we go. And then let's update this so it isn't messy. What I like to do is clear everything from the stat column and then just select last year. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go over each of these buckets quickly. Last year one. Now, when you go and you look at each of these buckets, by the way, so I'm going to actually step away from looking at the last year one buckets. Always look at how many golfers are in that bucket this year versus the average. That's already going to give you an indication of, are we up to par, or are we missing some, or do we have a ton more? Always look at those things first, because then when you look at like success rates, you have a really high success rate and then you have more golfers that year than you normally do, you're going to have a really high projection and a very good likelihood that golfers from that bucket will actually appear inside the top 10. Now, when it comes to the last year buckets, nothing is safe, essentially, from what I see. Success rates are low. We do have high frequency rates of golfers from some of these buckets being inside the top 10. 100% means we've seen at least one golfer from that bucket inside the top 10. So you could start there if you wanted. Nothing is for certain, really. Like, I guess this is one of the buckets that's pretty good. So the last year 5 means a missed cut bucket. Let me just go top bottom. Last year ones, golfers who top 20 this event. Usually this is a bucket where you normally see at least one golfer within the bucket finish inside the top 10 for that week. We do have a 100% frequency rate. We normally see, or minimum 1. We have 3 less golfers than we typically do. And our projection is between 0 to 2. And that's because the strength of field points that go into it, not super high. So this is a way of me adding value to that bucket. Whereas before I was kind of just looking at success rates and how many golfers were in that bucket. Now we add a little value to it and doesn't really add up. So having a top 20 finish here last year, not super imperative to put in your lineup. I still will though. Like this 100% frequency rate, I like that. 75% frequency rate of being the optimal lineup, I like that. Let's take a look at the golfers that are in that last year 1 bucket. Again, if you're following along with me, you have that option to use the filter. I clear out everyone in the last year bucket and just select last year 1. So we have that. And one of the reasons I think why we don't see a high projection is because Max Homa is our only 9K golfer and above. We see no 10K golfers. It drops pretty steep. It goes to Victor, Tyrrell Hatton, Shane Lowry, and then into the 7K range and lower. So yeah, 0 to 2, I think is a fair projection. If I did like one more than another, I kind of like Victor this week. For $8,000, like $8,900, I like that a lot. I also don't mind playing any of these golfers down here, so feel free. And I'm not sure if Daniel Berger is actually playing. It'd be cool to see him, but we'll see. We'll see if he withdraws beforehand, or if he already has, then, my bad. The next bucket to talk about, last year 2s, that 20 to 40 range. We're also looking at 0 to 2 here as well. But 100% frequency rate, so keep that in mind. Again, follow along with me on the cheat sheet. You just go down to last year 2. And now we finally see our first 10K golfer in Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Will Zalatoris, Tommy Fleetwood. Now, one thing to note. This is 0 to 2. sure, we have 100% frequency rate. We have less golfers in it than we normally do. Not a high frequency rate of being in the optimal lineup. All that does to me is caution me into playing 2 of these guys. So this is why I like the bucket system. Let's say I wanted to put Rory and Justin Thomas together. No, I'm not going to. Like I might, and if I'm creating 100 lineups, I might put them in 2 lineups together. If I'm trying to figure out an anchor play, like if I'm trying to put one guy with another, I'm not going to put Rory and Justin Thomas together. I'm also not going to put Rory and Will Zalatoris together. It's too high price to combine those golfers together. And so far, I don't see anything, with the buckets that tell me this is a good pairing. Again, I will always have FOMO, so I will put some of these guys together, but I'm building over 100 lineups, guys. Like, just keep that in mind. If you're someone who only builds 10, risk what you see with the bucket projections if you want to pair these guys up together. But I'm also certainly not playing 3 of these guys together. There's no possible way I'm putting 3 of these guys together. So this eliminates a lot of combinations that you can build. So keep that in mind. Moving on. Last year 3s. 0 to 2 with that bucket, and actually 0 to 2 with all of these, well, the next 2 buckets. Okay, 0 to 2 last year 3s. Rahm and Scheffler are in this bucket. It's 0 to 2, so it's not even an anchor bucket. It doesn't tell you absolutely want to play a golfer from this bucket, so keep that in mind. Kind of crazy to see, because there aren't really any 10K golfers that are screaming confidence for me to select. Like Jon Rahm, obviously in a heater. Scottie Scheffler playing some really good golf as of late. And then Rory in the last bucket that we were just talking about. He just played really well at the API. But all the buckets they're in, there's not one, one bucket you absolutely want a golfer from. So the fact that these guys are in it, that's kind of scary. Moving on to the next one, last year 4s, 0 to 2 here. Not a lot of golfers in that bucket, so I can't imagine we're going to stay here long. Ryan Harmon, yeah, okay. So we're going to skip that one. Last year 5s, missed cuts. We want somewhere between 1 to 3. We're pretty much on par for how many golfers we see in that bucket, and it's 100% frequency rate, not only in the top 10 leaderboard, but also the optimal lineups. So, last year 5s, headed by Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa, and Tony Finau. 1 to 3 is the projection. You certainly can get that with any of these guys up at the top. You have such a combination of golfers down here you can pick from. So I wouldn't get married to grabbing certain golfers here at the top. Maybe 1, maybe 2, probably not 3. And especially if you like some of these fillers down here, I would probably stay away from anchoring any of these guys up here. And we just went over this with the past optimal lineups. There isn't any certainty. We've seen optimal lineups with 0 10K golfers in it, 0 9K golfers in it. So that's not to say don't play a 10K golfer, don't play a 9K golfer. Obviously, starting there makes lineup building a lot easier. It just goes hand in hand with this bucket projection saying there's no certainty with 10K golfers this week or 9K golfers, which kind of sucks. I'm not going to lie. I like when the buckets tell me, hey, yeah, 10K golfer is a really good option this week. So is a 9K golfer. This week, not so much. And then the last bucket are golfers who just did not play. This also includes golfers who have never played this tournament ever. I don't have that information to show you, combining buckets, but last year 6s are just not playing last year. And you can see in column AI, this is your course history bucket. There are some golfers that do have course history, but the majority of them do not. So keep that in mind. Some notable names here at the top. I kind of really like Thomas Dietrich. I like Taylor Montgomery. I put Minwoo Lee in my dummy lineup. Do with that as whatever, however that makes you feel. Does not matter to me. I just think Minwoo's probably a good play at this event. Just got a feeling. That's all. But some notable golfers that I really like, I'm considering. Remember, the projection is 1 to 3. Always round on this one, always round up there. And that's what we have. So again, if you're following on with on the cheat sheet, just when you go to this bucket, just note you want 1 to 3. Easy as that. Let's move on to the next bucket, and that is our last week buckets. So did playing last week matter? And if it did, which bucket shows up more than another? So we're going to start at the top. Last year ones are golfers who top 20 this event. I am projecting somewhere between 1 to 4. 1 to 4. Pretty impressive. Not really the highest success rate. We do have a few more golfers than we typically do. Frequency rate's kind of high. 87%, that's pretty good. So let's take a look at our golfers in the last week 1 bucket. Remember to make sure there are no active filters on. Go to last week 1 bucket. Select that after, clearing the other buckets out. Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler. So that's pretty good. I mean, 1 to 4. And the bucket doesn't even have that many golfers in it. So really playing well last week, especially at the Arnold Palmer, pretty good indicator of success at this event. But we do have Rory, we have Scotty, we also have Max Homa, Patrick Cantlay, Victor Hovland. These are all going to be names people are going to select when building their lineups, and rightfully so. You want somewhere between 1 to 4. So what this tells me, don't build a full lineup with these guys. Build up to 4, or, choose up to 4 golfers, but really live somewhere between, I'd say, 2 to 3. Maybe you find your anchor plays here. Maybe it's a Rory Patrick Cantlay combo this week. Seems pretty fair, but I also, I told you I liked Victor Hovland. He's right there as well. I think those are good choices, but obviously you do whatever you think, makes sense to you. Our next bucket, last week 2s. That's 1 to 3 for that projection as well. Kind of just stays there, 50% frequency rate. We have way more golfers in that bucket than we typically do. That is because a ton of people tied for 39th place at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. A ton of people. So looking at our last week 2s, this is going to be a volume-driven bucket. Remember the projection. It's 1 to 3 with 31 golfers in it. So it starts with Jon Rahm, then it goes down to Xander Schauffele, Justin Thomas. So we have some decisions to make just by looking at last week 1 and last week 2, because we want at least one of these guys in each of these buckets. Which now makes choosing a 10K golfer a little bit easier, but it doesn't, really tell us which one we absolutely want. Because obviously we had Scotty and Rory in the other one. Now we have Jon Rahm and Xander Schauffele. So pick your poison. And then a slew of pretty decent golfers, especially fillers to put in your lineup. But remember, we only want 1 to 3. So if you do go with Rahm or Schauffele, it might be hard to put some of these golfers in your lineup. Now, if you want to go the opposite, there's another way to think about this. You could look at the 2 buckets, the last week 1 and the last week 2, and you look at kind of these filler golfers. If you like more golfers in one of these buckets down here, then maybe you pair up with the 10K golfer in the other bucket. That's a good way to think of building lineups this week. So if you liked a lot of these filler golfers here, I'd pair them up with like Rory or Scheffler. That seems pretty reasonable. Or if you like the fillers in that bucket, pair them up with Rahm or Schauffele, or even JT. I think that's an easy way to go about it. Moving on to the next bucket, last week 3s, 0 to 2. We only got 10 golfers in this bucket, so we probably won't stay here long. Oof. Will Zalatoris is in this bucket. That's tough, because a lot of people like him. I even like him this week. Yeah, it's a risky play. Put it that way. last week 4s is pretty much the same song and dance as last week 3s. Not, I mean, it's 0 to 2. Shane, yeah. Tommy Fleetwood's an interesting name, and so is Seamus Power, but 0 to 2 from this bucket. Golfers who missed the cut last week, not a very high success rate. I mean, high frequency rate, but the original projection would be 1 to 3. But because my conservative projection over here is less than 2, that automatically drops my minimum to 0. So really this is 0 to 3. And your last week 5s are headed by Colin Morikawa, who is a favorite of everybody this week, it seems. But in a bucket that's 0 to 3, hard to jump on that, especially when we've got a lot of good filler golfers here. I'd rather fill with these guys than play Colin Morikawa. Let's put it that way. So that's my analysis of that bucket. Let's move on. Last week 6s, so golfers who didn't play last week. There are 35 golfers in that bucket. Normally we see around 52. I imagine because the Arnold Palmer Invitational was an elevated event, more golfers played in last week's event than usual. This is normally a 100% frequency rate of finishing inside the top 10. At least one golfer, I should say. This week, maybe not so much. 0 to 2 is our projection. And the golfers in here, not really anyone notable. Sure, McNeely, Berger. Berger's coming off an injury. Who knows? Lanto, same thing. No one really worth talking about. So moving on to our course history buckets. There are 2 golfers in the course history 1 bucket. And these are your golfers with the best course history. So that 0 to 20 range, basically, you know, which golfers average out a top 20 finish at this event. Well, sometimes this includes just people who've played it once, maybe even twice. Taylor Pendrith, Doug Ghim. Doug Ghim has played this a couple times, I think twice. 17.5 is his average. Last year, finished 6th. Pendrith has only played it once, but I like Pendrith this week. A lot of people do, I think, from what I've heard. But yeah, he's a talented golfer. I don't mind going to Pendrith, but that's a 0 to 2 projection with only 2 golfers in it. I would err on the 0 side than the 2 side. Just throwing that out there. Course history 2s, 20 to 40 average finishing position. 0 to 2 is our projection. Rory McIlroy is in here. So is Justin Thomas and Will Zalatoris. So as I keep seeing this, any bucket that Zalatoris is in has not been great. But in this bucket, he's with Rory McIlroy, which has been in one good bucket that I would choose. So if I am going Rory, I'm certainly not pairing him up with Will Zalatoris. I think that's just one of my rules this week, and that's cool. I don't mind doing that. I don't mind living with that rule. I'm probably not going to pair up Rory and JT, which I probably would have before, honestly. Sure, I'll do it in a couple lineups, but it won't be like an anchor play. Certainly won't anchor around those guys. So, 0 to 2, ladies and gentlemen, from this bucket. Next bucket, 2 to 5, course history 3s. This is not even really a volume-driven bucket. Sure, there are 43 golfers in it, but we normally see around 45. So I think the volatility of this golf course kind of lends your course history average not to be super great. And that's probably why, you know, we see a lot of golfers from this bucket showing up. Inside the top 10, that is. And John Rahm is in this bucket, go along with Max Homa and Patrick Cantlay. So if I'm using the bucket from, or the last bucket we just talked about, course history 2s, Rory was in that bucket. And I said I wouldn't pair him up with JT or Will Zalatoris. Well, you can kind of do the inverse, or not so much the inverse, but you could use that bucket and say, ooh, I like Rory. I'm going to pair him up with Patrick Cantlay. Or I'm going to pair him up with Victor Hovland. That all makes sense. Likewise, you remember me saying I don't want to play Will Zalatoris or Justin Thomas? Well, combos with John Rahm or Max Homa seem pretty smart. So that's kind of how I look at like building lineups. If one bucket shows one thing, I'll probably then choose the other bucket. So keep all that in mind. But this bucket's large, 45 golfers in it. And you want somewhere between what, 1 to 4? Is that what I just said? No, 2 to 5. Close enough. 2 to 5. I don't know if I'm really going to anchor around golfers from this bucket. I'll just let the optimizer choose the golfers that it thinks is. I mean, quite honestly, what I'll probably end up doing is building equal amount of Rory McIlroy lineups to go along with John Rahm lineups. Those will probably be my 2 heavier owned golfers in the 10K and above range, but I'll own or I'll roster each 10K golfer. So don't get me wrong, I'm playing just about everyone 9K and above. Course history 4s, we want somewhere between 1 to 3. We have 40, normally see 31, 100% frequency rate. So 1 to 3. It almost drops down. Let me double check something. It almost drops down to 0. Actually, it wouldn't have. Yeah, this almost drops down to 0. If this goes underneath 2, I automatically drop my minimum down to 0. So technically doesn't. So I can keep that 1 to 3 projection. And course history 4s. Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa, Tony Finau, Jordan Spieth. Scotty, not a super good course history at this event. I think he's played it twice. 70 is his course history, so his average finishing position is 70th place. Finished 55th here last year. Now, anything could have caused this. You know, I think last year he was in the bad wind draw, and you know the other year he played it, maybe he just didn't have his game, you know, that he currently does. So anything could cause those issues. Just throwing that out there. So the fact that Scotty's in this bucket, yeah, it's not great. You know, the projection's 1 to 3. It's pretty close to 0 to 3. It's still a good reason to play someone like Scheffler, or even Xander, or even Colin, who I just said probably don't play in one of the other buckets, which you could still carry on with you, and maybe that's why you play Scotty over someone like Colin Morikawa. But then you've got we got a good list of, I shouldn't say a good list of 6K golfers. I only say good list of 6K golfers as opposed to volume of 6K golfers. Otherwise, it's pretty scarce up here at the top. Kind of want to look at this when it comes to projections like 1 to 3. I'm kind of talking myself into, it's not these 5 golfers. Is it really going to be, you know, like I'm kind of doing like a comparison. Are these 5 golfers going to beat these 35 golfers 100% of the time? And if that's the case, then you definitely play one of these guys. You anchor around one of these golfers. And then you skip everyone else. But if you can make, you know what? It doesn't even necessarily mean they have to beat them, right? We still have to put together a lineup that fits the salary constraints, and then their finishes at the end of the tournament. You know, we could have Scotty inside the top 10, and we also could have Brendan Todd inside the top 10. Brendan could finish 7th. Scotty could finish 3rd or 4th. Scotty wouldn't be in the optimal lineup. But Brendan Todd would be, because his salary allows you to build different lineups with other salary caps. Or with, not salary caps, but with other salaries. Whereas Scotty Scheffler being a 10K golfer, when you combine other buckets, you might not be able to get to an optimal lineup, or even, you know, a really close lineup to take down a GPP. So there's also that maneuvering that you have to do. So it becomes, lineup building is very fickle. I'm still liking, either starting with Rahm or Rory, but this doesn't really shy me away from playing someone like Scotty, because when we were going over the Rahm lineup or bucket, I think that, yeah, course history 3 bucket, there were a lot of good 7K golfers that you could build lineups around. So if you want to start with Scotty, you certainly could. And I think when we look at the Rory bucket, the course history 2, there's also still good 8 and 7K golfers you could build around there as well. So just giving you my pros and cons, I guess, of starting with Scotty or Xander or even Colin Morikawa or even Tony Finau or Jordan Spieth, and then pairing them up with other golfers. I think that's just fine. Course history 5s, golfers who just have the worst course history here. These are your missed cuts and withdraws. I don't think it's really worth talking about, but maybe it is because Cam Young's up there. I've heard a couple people talk about Cam Young not being a good fit at this golf course. I don't know if it's really true. I'll probably take a flyer on him. I'll also probably take a flyer on Seth Theegala. I will not pair any one of these guys up together with each other. So I will not put any Cam Young and Theegala lineups. Same goes with any of these other guys. I am playing I'm playing one golfer in this bucket and that's it. In any of my lineups. I'm not saying I'm only selecting, one particular golfer. There are 19 golfers in this bucket. I could have 19 lineups with one of these guys, each one of these guys in my lineup. A unique lineup that has, just one of them in it. Anyways, I can do that. I'd have no issues with that. I'm certainly not anchoring around any of these golfers. Course history 6, golfers who just have never played this event ever. We have 35 golfers in this bucket. Normally we see 24. Who could these golfers be? Tom Kim is one. Min Woo Lee, Taylor Montgomery, Thomas Dietrich, Ben Griffin, Alex Smalley, your winner last week, Kurt Kitayama. I would say these 7 golfers, plus maybe S.H. Kim, Ryan Fox, Justin Suh, Davis Thompson, Davis Riley, Ben Taylor. These are notable names. 13 of them. Projection is 0 to 2, but it's a low, it's a low 1. We always round up with this number, and that's 1.09, so we always round up to 2. It'll always be 2. Not a super high confidence rating for this bucket. I wouldn't mind just putting like one of these golfers in my lineup, and that's it. I wouldn't put 2 or more. I'd just probably just stick to 1. So this is quite literally the glue. This would be like a glue piece. So if I do put Tom Kim in my lineup, I'm not pairing them up with any of these guys. Same goes with Min Woo Lee. Same goes with Taylor Montgomery. Same goes with Thomas Dietrich. It will be difficult because I like a lot of these golfers, but I think that's probably the best way to build lineups. So that covers your course history buckets. Let's go in the recent form buckets. And this is pretty spread out. Just by looking at your max projections, you want golfers who have played recently, and you want a good mix of each of them. It looks like 1 will always be the minimum for these top 4 buckets, and then it's 3 or 4. So it looks like recent form 3 is when it goes up to 4. Okay. Let's select everyone in the course history bucket and look at our recent form 1s. So because of what I just said, I know we want somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers from this bucket in our lineup. Well, one golfer I don't see is Rory McIlroy. We've already talked about him a ton, but you do see Jon Rahm. You do see Scotty Scheffler. When I think of, the projection for this bucket, I kind of think to myself like, oh, this is easy. Jon Rahm or Scheffler. That's who we want to anchor our lineups around. But then there's, JT, Jason Day. Well, remember, if I'm playing Rory, I'm not playing Justin Thomas with him. I'm also not playing Will Zalatoris. He's not here in this bucket, but I'm probably not even also playing Max Homa. So if I was to build like a Rory lineup, do I go to Finau? Maybe I put 2 10K golfers together, so Rory and one of these guys, or maybe I just put like Jason Day. 1 to 3 is the projection. Very close to being under 3. It might be 0 to 2, but it is 1 to 3. I think we can move on. Recent form 2s. We want 1 to 3 here as well. And this is where it starts with Rory. Rory and Patrick Cantlay. Very interesting. I don't mind pairing these guys up together. Even them being in that 1 to 3. If that's the case, I'm not playing any of these other guys to go with Rory and Cantlay. Although the max projection says up to 3, which is totally plausible, totally doable, I'm probably just going to stick to 2. Just do the numbers game. Tom Kim is in this bucket. We were just talking about him in the Course History 6 bucket, but man. Yeah, okay, so I'm looking at a lot of these golfers, and I think it's hard not to put like 3 of these guys together in some of these lineups. I'm just going to let the optimizer do the work. It's hard for me to even think of who I really want to play. You know, like anchor around. Seeing what we saw in the last bucket and then what we see in this bucket, choices are hard. Recent form 3s. This is your 1 to 4. The projection is 1 to 4 golfers from this bucket finish inside the top 10. Who they are, I'm not sure. There are some very notable names. Colin Morikawa being one of them. Okay, here's my weird take. I would rather play Taylor Montgomery, Minwoo Lee, Thomas Dietrich. I might even go back to Alex Smalley. I also don't mind playing Harris English. Davis Riley. That's probably it. I'd rather play those guys over Colin Morikawa this week. That's my hot take. If I had a bet, I would put those golfers over Colin Morikawa. And I might even do that with Will Zalatoris, honestly. I think I find more value down here than I do up here. Could just be me. I don't know. You guys tell me. Well, would you rather take these golfers at the top or the golfers down here at the bottom? By the way, Tiger Woods isn't playing, so this will be out in my spreadsheets tomorrow. Moving on to the next bucket, recent form 4s. This is also a 1 to 3 projected bucket. And really no one notable. Just a lot of fill-ins, really. This is what I call kind of your glue. Probably need 1 golfer from this bucket to be in your lineups. I mean, $7,800 is the most expensive guy, and that's Maverick McNeely, who is recovering from an injury. So probably don't play him. Everyone else is $7,600 and cheaper, which makes lineup building easy with those golfers. So do as you will. The next couple buckets are 0 to 2 projections, but we probably just want to stay away from these guys altogether. Cam Davis and a bunch of 6K golfers in recent form 5, and then recent form 6, Daniel Berger. He might be worth a dart throw, honestly. And then a bunch of 6K golfers. So that rounds out your recent form buckets. Going on to salaries. So again, if you're following along with me, I'm just going to look at the salary buckets. We went over this with the pass optimal lineup and GPP winning lineups. And like what builds lineups. We saw it was a 10K golfer, a 9K golfer, and 2 6s most of the time. I'm not saying that's exactly what you should be doing, but it appears that that is one of the better lineup builds to do. 7K range, showing a pretty high success rate. Oh, is this true? Every single year there's been at least 3 6.5 and above 6K golfers inside the top 10 every single year. I thought we just went over it where you couldn't build some 6Ks. Now, obviously 2017, yep. 2018 was, oh yeah, no, you could. There was 3 right there. 2019? Epperl, Vegas, Snedeker. So there's three 6Ks, but upper 6K. Oh, Brian Harmon. Yep. Okay. 2020 we don't count. 2021. Oh, bunch of, yeah. Okay. We have our 6K golfers there as well. And in 2022, Deegan Bradley 69, Harold Varner the third 6,800. We have a third one. Yep. Adam Hadwin 65. So isn't that interesting? Every single year we've seen at least 3 upper 6K golfers in the top 10. We don't have 100% frequency rate of being in the optimal lineup, but like I said, we normally see a 10K golfer and a 9K golfer mixed in with 2 6K golfers for your optimal lineup at this event, or your GPP winning lineup or your sweet spot optimal. Doesn't matter which one you choose, you're still winning a ton of money if you do choose either of those lineups. So, yeah, that just kind of solidifies our thought process is having 2 6K golfers in our lineup sounds pretty smart. I will say this. Look at our year, like our totals for this year. We have 4 10Ks where we normally see 5. We have 6 9Ks where we normally see about 6. 10 8Ks where we normally see about 10. 42 7Ks where we normally see 44. 36 high 6Ks where we normally see 53. And we have 53 lower 6K golfers where we normally see 27. So there was a flip. They've included more lower 6K golfers than they typically do, which is crazy. Is that true? Sometimes I can have my, yeah, it is true. Sometimes I can have my formulas wrong. There are 36 golfers there and 53 golfers lower 6K. So I guess to me, what I'd feel more, well, I mean, projections are projections. It's just, I think the low success rate is what really drives this number to be low. But even with this being said, this is a low success rate, and this is still 0 to 2. I don't know, folks. I think 2 6K golfers, regardless of where they are in that range, I think is probably the best way to go. I think that's probably what I'll have my optimizer select. I'd probably put like 60% of my lineups with 2 6K golfers in it. I think that's pretty solid. Moving on to the last bucket, strokes gained bucket. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time here. Use the cheat sheet available to go over each of these golfers. You can see that in column D. That's the strokes gained bucket. Obviously, do all your filtering and sorting here. Strokes gained 1. There are 30 golfers in that bucket. We normally see 23. That projection's 2 to 5 to be inside the top 10. Your best golfers are going to be in this bucket, so probably choose 2. I wouldn't go on the high end of that. So 2, maybe 3. You're feeling frisky, go with 4, but I wouldn't do 5. 0 to 2 strokes gained 2s. Pretty on par with how many we typically see. That does have a 100% frequency rate of being inside the top 10, so do with that as you will. I'm not advocating to go 100% with at least one golfer in that bucket, but you're probably not going to, it's not going to be terrible. You'll probably find some good golfers in that bucket. Strokes gained 3. We normally see 3 golfers from this bucket inside the top 10. This is your team no putt. Good ball striking, good driving, good approach, very bad putting. So keep that in mind. 1 to 3 is the projection, and that stays the same even when I consider the conservative projections. Strokes gained 4, 0 to 2. Bad off the tee, but good putters. Pretty on par with how many we typically see. So 0 to 2 is a pretty fair projection. And then the other 2 buckets probably don't touch. Strokes gained 5 are bad off the tee with bad putting and typically bad in between, approach and around the green. I stay away from those guys as well. 0 to 2 is my projection there. There's a lot that has been said that this is a ball striker golf course, and strokes gained buckets bear that out just as well as everyone else does with their strokes gained analysis. So probably anchor around 2 of these guys. I imagine you know, the cream of the crop is here at the top or with this bucket. You do have 3 of your 10K golfers in this bucket. And a bunch of good 9 and 8K golfers. Strokes gained 2. Victor Hovland. Interesting. Remember, 100% frequency rate from this bucket. So you do with that as you will. I'm probably not going to play 100%. Strokes gained 3 has Scotty in it. So his putting has just been that bad. That's pushed him into the strokes gained 3 bucket, which I kind of like. It's not terrible. Strokes gained 4. Hideki Matsuyama is the top of this one. Not a bucket that you really need to actively seek out. Just throwing that out there. And then strokes gained 5. Tiger Woods is at the top. Again, I don't think he's playing, but you also then have Webb Simpson. High risk play, but I don't hate it. So that covers all the buckets. There's no way Webb Simpson's 37, right? Do I have that wrong? I gotta look up Webb's age. He's 37. I'm gonna crap myself. He is 37, born in 1985. He's already got 20 kids. It's crazy. Kidding, he doesn't have 20, but he has a lot. Doesn't, yeah, okay. I was trying to count how many kids he had, but it doesn't show. A lot of siblings though. Big family, creating another big family. 7. That's 2 years older than me. I wouldn't have thought that. I thought that guy is super old. What the hell? He seems like an old dude. Anyways, that covers the buckets. That covers the bucket system. That covers the entire video. Had to be quiet. I've got people in the house sleeping, so that's why you kind of hear the quiet voice going on. Congratulations to Jim Lemoyne for hitting both of the giveaways. I know there are going to be some salty people in chat or in the comment section, and rightfully so. You should be salty towards Jim. Yeah, that covers the preview. I will include all this information in the strategy video tomorrow, so keep that in mind. If you want to put your name in the entry for next week's giveaway, which is worth $5, be subscribed, comment down below. Give me your 2 favorite golfers. Easy as that. And you'll also be put towards the monthly giveaway. I'm still going to have that subscriber goal of 500 subscribers on there, just so we reach it and give $50 away. So yeah, if you want the chance to win $50, be subscribed, comment down below. That's that. That's easy. And also you'll be included in the weekly giveaway. Prize picks, by the way, if you're not signed up on here, pretty fun way to play fantasy sports. Link in the description. Sign up, put $20 in your account. I will give you your $20 back. Or put up to 100. Prize picks will match you up to $100. Just throwing that out there. And again, you could have followed me along, or you could have followed along with me throughout all this video by using the cheat sheet that was available at your disposal. Again, link in the description below. And I'll have the optimizer ready for tomorrow's video, which is really today, because it's 1 in the morning. That'll be available later. Anyways, that's all that I have for you guys. So thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.